Hey everybody, welcome to Celebrate Recovery at the Common Table Online. My name is Zach. I am the area ministry leader for CR in the Urbana, Maryland area, and we're back at it again tonight. Last week we had the opportunity to hear from my friend Dennis, who shared a wonderful and vital message about the importance of saying yes, how we yield ourselves to opportunity to serve and put ourselves into action, how it is so important that we set an example for those we encounter, and how we can best serve in our community, our greater community, but also our faith and our recovery communities as well. And tonight, we're going to take a pause. We're going to talk a little bit about recalibrating, readjusting ourselves, and getting back in sync. I don't know about you. Have you ever had one of those moments where you feel like you waited too long to correct something? And in my head, I get this mental image of a child that trips over an untied shoe. And had we identified that the shoe was untied in the first place and taken a moment to tie it, to fix it, to get things in order before we started running, we might not have tripped. And sometimes we wait too long and we've got to tie the shoe back up after we fall. And I want to focus our time just talking about that, because occasionally we get out of sync. We may feel like we're spiraling into negative thinking. Maybe we feel like we're experiencing some destructive behavior in ourselves, or maybe we're just feeling like we're stuck in a rut and we just feel a bit out of sync. This is where it's vital and it's important for us to continue to take that daily inventory, that self-assessment, that time of reflection, where we can assess where we are currently, where we can pick up on ways that we might be out of sync. We can identify when our shoe might be untied before we trip and have a big fall. But we just take that daily review of ourselves, that daily look at ourselves. What went well today? What were some challenges that I faced today? And why was that? Have I experienced those same challenges several days in a row? Have I felt like I've had that same negative thinking, that same frustration? Have I been getting angry at similar times each and every day? If you say yes to any of those, it might be that we're a bit out of sync in the moment and we need to readjust ourselves. We need to refocus. We need to take a pause. And that pause may look different for each and every one of us. Maybe a short pause, it might be a long pause. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that tonight. And our key verse is going to be 1 Corinthians 10:12. So if you think you are standing firm, be careful that you don't fall. Always be aware, always be considering, always be self-assessing, always be taking a daily inventory of yourself so that you can catch things, so that you don't fall, so that we can be careful that we don't fall. So without further ado, let's center our hearts and minds and let's go to God together in a time of music. Let's join together and worship our God and our higher power. Let's join together.
Sadness from wherever you've been. Come broken-hearted, let rescue begin. Come find your mercy, oh sinner, come kneel. Earth has no sorrow that heaven can't heal. Earth has no sorrow that heaven can't heal. Lay down your burden those who stray. Come sit at the table, come taste the grace. There's rest for the weary, a rest that endures. Earth has no sorrow that heaven can't cure. Lay down your burdens, lay down your shame. All who are broken, lift up your face. Oh, wanderer, come home. You're not too far. Lay down your hurt, lay down your heart. Come as you are, come as you are. Fall in his arms, come as you are. There's joy for the morning, oh sinner, be still. Earth has no sorrow that heaven can't heal. Earth has no sorrow that heaven can't heal. Lay down your burden, lay down your shame. All who are broken, lift up your face.
I am a grateful believer in Jesus Christ. I struggle with my pride, a daily desire for perfection, a battle with anxiety, and a pull towards depression, and my name is Zach. So we talk about adjusting, and when we're out of sync, when we need a recalibration. So I had this word calibrate, recalibrate in my head and just playing in my head the last several days. And I wanted to look up the official definition of it. And there are a couple, but this is the one that I chose for us tonight. The definition of calibrate is correlate the readings of an instrument with those of a standard in order to check the instrument's accuracy. So that's a very technical definition and for a very technical device. Scientific instruments, you hear the word calibrate, you might hear it if you're an auto mechanic. But when I hear the word calibrate and when I think of the recalibrate, I picture my old calculus professor when he was recalibrating the smart board. So if you've ever seen one of the smart boards where it's not an old school overhead projection or a chalkboard, but it's that smart board that probably costs a lot of money that projects what's on a computer screen onto a large screen, used for educators from elementary school up into higher learning and higher education. But I can just distinctly remember him doing it before a class when I was coming in, or needing to pause in the middle of the class to recalibrate because the screen just got out of sync. Maybe some of the picture was off of it a little bit, or maybe the picture was crooked. Maybe it just was not perfectly aligned. And if you're looking at it, you could pick up that it was just out of sync a little bit and it needed a recalibration. So I can picture him with his pointer going around doing the calibration and recalibrating it. And so I went ahead and I looked up, and this comes from Smart Tech, from the Smart Boards website. But I'm going to read for you the steps to recalibrate a smart board. It says, number 1, press calibrate and then follow the on-screen instructions. Key here, the calibration screen appears. This can take a few moments. Remember that, this can take a few moments. Step 2, press the red target with the tip of the pen. Hold the tip at the center of the target until the target turns green and then lift the pen. The target moves to the next location. Step 3, continue pressing targets until the second calibration screen and a grid appears. Number 4, are you still with me? Use a pen to draw a spiral horizontally across the grid. As you draw, the ink is blue. As you complete each square, the square becomes green. Step 5, when all squares are green, a progress bar appears. Step 6, when the progress bar is full, the message calibration successfully appears. And then there's an important note, wait until the calibration screen indicates that the display is operating correctly before proceeding. So think about that, it's very specific steps. And this is for a smart board, this is for a piece of technology. But I think that we individually, we personally, when we're out of sync, when we need to recalibrate ourselves, either emotionally, spiritually, or mentally, whatever it is, however we've gotten ourselves out of sync, maybe we can have defined steps that we can take. And I think it'll look different for all of us. But I think we need to remind ourselves of that keynote that was specifically called out in the instructions. This can take a few moments. Sometimes it's not quick and easy. Sometimes it takes a list of steps to recalibrate yourself. Depending on how out of sync you are, depending on how out of sync I get, it can be momentarily, or it can take me a dedicated amount of time, or it may take a longer period of time where I'm working on stuff over that period of time. So think about the 12 steps and how we are a 12-step program at Celebrate Recovery. And if you've gone through and progressed through, read through the 12 steps, maybe that has been a recalibration for you. Maybe your life got out of sync to the point where you needed to follow a structured 12-step program to get back in sync so that you were living a healthier life, so that you were progressing in your growth and recovery and faith journey. Maybe you needed those specific 12 steps that you could follow, and maybe it took a year to progress through them for you. Maybe it took 6 months. It could look different for each and every one of us. If we're progressing, we have to remember that key verse tonight that I read for you was 1 Corinthians 10:12. It said, so if you think you are standing firm, be careful that you don't fall. If you think you're standing firm, be careful that you don't fall. And this is where I think it's vital for us to take that daily look at ourselves so that we can recognize if we're out of sync, so that we can recognize if part of the screen is off the smart board and is on the wall now, or if it's 30 degrees crooked, or whatever that is. Maybe we've noticed that our temper has flared up more often lately. Maybe we're feeling more tired than we're used to feeling, even though we're getting the same amount of sleep. Warning signal there. Maybe we're finding that we're frustrated. Maybe we're not quite enjoying work, or we're not quite enjoying being around certain people as much as we used to. Maybe everyday life has become more of a chore than an opportunity for us. These are all warning signals that tell us we might be out of sync. And if we're not paying attention, that's the time where we'll fall and we could get really hurt. So if you think you're standing firm, be careful that you don't fall. Be aware. Take a moment to look and reflect and see if you need adjustment. And that momentary pause when we see those red flags, that recalibration can look different for each and every one of us. So at times it can be a quick pause. Maybe it's just a time of prayer. Maybe we have a prayer like the serenity prayer that we're going to say together shortly that will help us recalibrate and get back in sync in that moment when our emotions are taking control of us or we're spiraling into negative thinking. Maybe it's a quick phone call to a trusted person we have in our lives that we can just open up to and get some things off our chest. Maybe it's a time of meditation. Maybe it's a structured breathing technique that helps calm you down, center you, get you recalibrated so that you can get back at it. I will tell you, if you are so out of sync that you're having trouble controlling your thoughts, emotions, or your actions, there is nothing too pressing for you to take a quick pause, a deep breath, a prayer, because if we don't, we might create a bigger problem than we want to or are ready to deal with. We might create a bigger problem. We might encounter some deeper pain or regret if we take a minute to pause. Sometimes that recalibration might be a bit of a longer period for us. And I'm thinking like, I don't know if you can relate to me in this, but as I look back at my work, I realized that the only time at my current job that I've taken 2 or more consecutive days off of work, vacation days, personal days, was when my daughter Emmeline was born. And I took time off for parental leave. And I cannot remember a time where I took a Monday and Tuesday off, or a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or a week's vacation. So for you, maybe if you're out of sync enough, and maybe this is me too, maybe it's a day off work where we can take a drive, go take a hike, be alone for time to recalibrate. Maybe it's that you want to take time off work and spend it with family. Maybe you want to spend it with you and God, your higher power, whatever that might be. Maybe you need a longer vacation to recalibrate yourself, to get yourself back in sync emotionally, mentally, to get back into a healthy space for yourself. Sometimes it can be a series of moments to help us recalibrate. Like I said, 12-step program. For some of us, it might be taking time to dive into a book that can help us. And it's interesting to think about this because my email that I send out every Thursday morning, and if you don't receive it and you'd like to mention something in the chat or in the private prayer requests on the platform so that we can get you connected and get your email added to the list. But that weekly reminder and devotional email that I send out, I had a really good friend that I trust deeply and I respect deeply respond to my email last week and say, hey, I just finished this book and I thought of you with it. You might be interested in it. And I read his email and I said, all right, ordered. It's on the way to my house now. That book is sitting right over here. It's called Soundtracks by John Acuff. And it is all about the thinking soundtracks that play in our head and how if we've got negative thoughts that run our lives, how they can impact our mood, our ability, our decision making. And if we replace them with a more positive train of thought or a soundtrack that plays in our head of thoughts, how it can open us up to new opportunities and remove some of the restraints in our lives. And I'm a little bit into the book and I already love it. But for me, it was very timely, because now I can focus on that and see if I can pick up something interesting for there that can give me new perspective. My dad recommended I read a book recently by Watchman Nee. If you've never heard of Watchman Nee or his story, I encourage you to look into it. He was a pastor in the late 1800s, early 1900s in China, that ended up spending the last 30 years of his life in prison because of his faith. That book was Normal Christian Life. And I got an immense amount of insight and thought-provoking words from that book. But things like a book can help you recalibrate as you dive deeper and reflect and have that self-reflection. So whatever that is, whether it's a momentary pause, taking a moment away, whether it's a longer period, like a day off work, a day to be out by yourself in nature, a day to do something that's going to get you back in sync, or whether it's diving into a book or a 12-step program where you're following structured steps to progress and recalibrate yourself. I would encourage you, if you're seeing any warning signs that you're out of sync, think about how you might recalibrate yourselves. And think about how you might get yourself back in sync so that we can continue to progress in this faith and recovery journey that we're on together. So as we turn things over to Carol to lead us through the Serenity Prayer, I would just encourage you, if you're not sure what that recalibration might be for you, reach out to one of us here at Celebrate Recovery. You can use the contact information on the notes page here on Common Table Online. You can send me an email. I'll share my contact information in the chat, or you can reach out to anybody. Just raise your hand and someone will reach out to you. But with that, let's turn it over to Carol as she leads us through the Serenity Prayer. Carol?
Hi, everyone. I am a grateful believer in Jesus Christ who struggles with depression, anxiety, and being the daughter of an alcoholic. My name is Carol. Please join with me now as I read the Serenity Prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Living one day at a time, enjoying one moment at a time, accepting hardship as a pathway to peace, taking, as Jesus did, this sinful world as it is, not as I would have it, trusting that you will make all things right if I surrender to your will, so that I may be reasonably happy in this life and supremely happy with you forever in the next. Amen.
Thank you, Carol. All right, as we wrap up and get ready to head back into the real life and back from our time together tonight, I want to read you a piece of scripture, and I want you to consider this. And if you want, go back and read it later on or tomorrow when you have an opportunity. But this is from the Gospel of John, chapter 15. It's verses 4 and 5. And if you read this, I would say start at verse 1, because there's a lot of good stuff in the book of John. But in John chapter 15, it says, "Abide in me, and I in you, as the branch cannot bear fruit by itself unless it abides in the vine. Neither can you unless you abide in me. I am the vine. You are the branches. Whoever abides in me and I in him, he it is that bears much fruit. For apart from me, you can do nothing." Those are the words of our Savior Christ and our higher power. Abide in your higher power. Seek connection with your higher power. Be in touch with your higher power through prayer, through Bible reading, through meditation, through self-reflection. challenge you to do that this week as you head into the weekend. Thank you for letting me share. Thanks for being here tonight. Go with God, go in peace. And if you need to, take a moment to recalibrate. Have a great evening.